Can you envision a world where you and your family in America and those who immigrated from Africa and the Caribbean could receive immersive financial education and invest in fractional and whole shares of U.S. publicly traded companies? That time has come. Wakeza. Finally, from your mobile phone, you can start investing in building wealth. Wakeza. Just sign up for the Wakeza app and join the Wakeza community to receive ongoing adult and youth financial education from licensed advisors. Wakeza. You become a financially educated and protected investor. Wakeza has one empowering objective: creating financial inclusion and your family's generational wealth for the African diaspora. Wakeza.
Money's scary.
I see a lot of people struggling with how to manage their money.
They aren't keeping track of how much money is coming in and how much is going out.
Most kids don't know how to handle money.
I'm a big spender, not much of a saver, and I think if I had seen something modeled differently earlier, then I probably would have a different relationship with money.
I think World of Money gives them that basis, that financial literacy that they need.
World of Money is a youth financial education training institute. It operates Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4:45 in July of each year.
We go in the morning, we meet with our classroom leader.
Each day is different and each day has a theme and focus. So some days we'll be talking about banking, other days we'll be talking about stocks and bonds.
I did learn a lot about credit scores,
401ks,
gaining interest on money, making your money work for you,
how to save your money,
checkings accounts and savings accounts,
and yeah, how to live a better life.
My name is William and Law. Handling money is a big responsibility, and it should be held in the hands of a responsible person.
Hi, my name is Rachel. I feel like I just graduated from business school, like real university business school.
Just having role models like that come and share their knowledge with us is one example between, learning, gaining success, and then giving back.
And it's just a straight, long time.
Also, one of the cool things that our students learn is Mandarin Chinese.
The 5 tenets of World of Money: learn, earn, save, invest, and donate.
It's helped me become more aware of how much I'm spending and how much I'm saving and how much I'm giving.
It's more about, yes, you had an opportunity to earn the money. Now, what do you do to improve the lives of those that are around you and, the future generations?
You need to give as your resources, whether that's money or your time, and that's more important than anything.
We have visited the White House about 3 times. Our Young Mogul Board of Directors joined me as I testified on Capitol Hill to talk to Congress about financial education. We've opened or closed the NASDAQ Stock Exchange 4 times. We were on CNBC, we have been on MSNBC, we have appeared on ABC, NBC.
I feel like financial literacy is one of the key components in life. No matter what career path you choose, you will definitely have to encounter finance or any type of financial components in your life, such as whenever you're making your first purchase for your home, which was discussed during the workshops.
Moguls and young moguls, I dare you to become financially successful.
Miss Lamb grooms us to be ambitious, and I think that the tools that she gives us at World of Money are helpful in making sure that those ambitions can be sustained.
After becoming a billionaire, I will invest my money in charities to build schools worldwide that will teach finance.
It's an amazing program. It's done so much more than just teach me about money. It's taught me about being professional, about working hard, about success.
It's worth the time and worth the energy, and I think that your children one day will thank you for it.
Hello, I am Sabrina Lamb, the founder and CEO of Planet Wakeza, as well as wakeza.com and worldofmoney.org. Welcome to this space where we have really empowering conversations around the intersection of how money impacts ourselves individually, as well as all of our other relationships, or in terms as well as with financial decisions as well. tonight, because I've been following this, our guest, our featured expert tonight, for a very long time. And she has really shared or has a long track record, career in divorce as a divorce attorney, but also just really breaking down an analysis on how we should think about relationships, whether that's family and divorce. And so she's here to share her expertise with you. Please welcome to the stage, Angela Barker, Esquire. Hello, Angela.
Hi, Sabrina. Thank you for having me. I'm very grateful for the opportunity. Thank you.
Yes, very happy that you are here. So let's start with, why did you decide to specialize in divorce and family attorney and legal practice?
Well, I decided to become a divorce and family lawyer because my dad was a divorce and family lawyer. So it's as simple as that. I was fascinated with the work he did. And, after school, I would go by his office as he became a lawyer when I was in when I was in high school. And he had an office in Flatbush in Brooklyn. I would go there. And I was just fascinated with the way he interacted with people and worked with people and helped people. So after law school, I taught for a while. And then I went to law school. After law school, I did corporate law. And it just did not catch me in the same way as divorce and family law did. In addition to that, I realized as a divorce and family lawyer, I could bring all of me to the table. For example, I'm an educator. I have a master's degree in education. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. And I have to bring all of that to my work as a divorce lawyer. Every day is different. Every case is different. And it's just very much exciting. So that's why I decided to do divorce law. Now, my dad did not want me to do divorce law, divorce and family law.
Why not?
He wanted me to be a corporate lawyer.
Okay. Okay. Well, to your credit, you are a divorce and family lawyer. You assist clients as they transition through various stages of life, including drafting, prenuptial agreements, and anticipation of marriage, advice and counsel to clients considering a separation or divorce, and if necessary, representing clients in divorce negotiations and court proceedings. As you indicated, you have a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology from City University of New York, Baruch College, and a Master of Education degree from City University of New York, Baruch College, and a JD, Juris Doctor degree from Columbia Law School. 16 years ago, that's when you started your law practice limited to divorce, matrimonial, and family law. You're admitted to practice in New York and New Jersey. That's really important to know, because all lawyers do not practice in every state, and the laws for each state vary. You're also a member of several bar associations and community groups. You are married and have 2 children. In your spare time, you like traveling, gardening, watching, and reading war and true crime documentaries and crime fiction. I bet that really informs you as well.
Yes. So, I like to pick up a bit of the drama, as you can see.
So when people come to you, I like that what you said, you bring your whole self, that of your psychology, your empathy, you have empathy, compassion. When people come to you, what state are they in emotionally?
They are in a very bad place usually when they're divorced. If they're the ones that have been blindsided by their spouse filing a divorce, or if things at home got to be so bad that they feel there's no other way but to get a divorce. Oftentimes they're afraid because the family unit is going to change. They're afraid because they don't want to be the so-called single parent. They're afraid because, they may have to pay child support, or they're afraid because they may not get enough child support, or what we call in New Jersey alimony. New York, we call it maintenance, but it's called spousal support. So they're afraid of the future. They're afraid of change. And sometimes they're angry. Sometimes the circumstances of the divorce, whether it be financial abuse, physical abuse, adultery. So they're in a very rough spot when they come to see me.
So how do you determine if that client or that potential client is serious about separating? Do you have a window of time when you said think about it, see if you can work things out, or do you immediately go through the process, initiate the process?
Well, no. Well, if they come to me and their spouse has already filed a divorce, or if they come to me and there's something very emergency like going on, whereby it's financial abuse or any other type of abuse that's going on, then we have to immediately file a divorce. But most people call me up and they then, see me again in a year or two when they're finally ready to become divorced. I think that I try my best as a divorce lawyer. I try my best to understand what's going on in the marriage, because so many people, I tell my clients all the time, Facebook is not reality. And life is hard, and marriage is very hard. And not no two marriages are alike, and there's no such thing as the perfect marriage. So I try to figure out what's going on, and sometimes I counsel them to maybe go to a marriage counselor to try to get these issues sorted out before they decide to pull the trigger. But it takes two to tango. And a lot of people do not believe in psychological services. A lot of people do not believe in mental health treatment and refuse to go to a therapist for whatever reason. And if you have a spouse who's refusing to seek advice and counsel from a mental health professional, oftentimes you don't have no other choice but to file for divorce. So it depends on when that person sees me, why, and under what circumstances, and also what the other spouse is doing.
What are the indicators of financial abuse?
Well, all abuse falls under is a power imbalance. One person usually telling the other person what to do, and that person feels that they have no other recourse. But financial abuse can include gambling, someone excessively spending, someone taking money from the accounts without telling the other person, spending money on a paramour, and the other person thinks that there's money there and there's none, or investing in risky financial instruments that both spouses did not agree upon. Also, financial abuse involve not giving the other spouse access to the money. So you will have cases whereby someone makes a lot of money, but just give their spouse a few dollars a day or a week or a month to live on. So not having equal say in what's happening to the marriage, to the money that comes into the marriage, not having access to that money, or someone spending that money in a way that the other person does not agree that it's how it should be spent.
So the person is sitting across from you, determining if they're moving forward. There are indicators of financial abuse. But let's say that they're a strange person, does not have an attorney. Do you engage directly with that other person, or how is that negotiated or navigated actually?
Well, we have to be very careful, because as a divorce lawyer, I think we have a heightened requirement than any other lawyers when interacting with the public, just because of the nature of the practice. So I try to, let's say, if I need to reach out to the other side, I would do so by way of email or by way of letter. But picking up the telephone call and calling the other person is a risky endeavor, because they could say anything, right? And you as a lawyer have to conduct yourself a certain way at all times, but you also have exposure. So I try not to interact directly with the opposing party and try to get that party to get a lawyer, which they should have a lawyer on the other side in order for the process to be fair. But I do I limit my contact to someone who is unrepresented, as we say, by writing, either email or a letter.
What percentage, Attorney Barker, of your clients decide not to move forward with the divorce?
I think most people who call me decide not to move forward with the divorce.
Oh,
I think
okay.
most people who call me, it's a very lonely world out there for people who are experiencing difficulty in their marriage, because a lot of times if they go to their parents or their siblings, I remember some people would say, my parents would tell me, well, if there's no severe domestic violence, what's the problem? Or he's providing for you, what's the problem? So it's very hard for an older generation to talk to someone younger about what's happening in the marriages. It's very hard for you to talk to your girlfriends and other friends about what's going on in a marriage. So sometimes you feel that what's happening is happening just to you, or that is atypical. But I tell my clients, there are times, for example, if I could be blunt, some people will come to me and say, we only have sex once a week. And I say, so what's the problem? Because, everybody is different. And this myth of being in love and constantly being up under each other it's just a myth. Marriage, again, is a journey. And some days you have bad days and sometimes you have good days, and you have to be able to work it out and work it through.
So how do you draw the line as a divorce attorney licensed in New York and New Jersey? How do you draw the line from a client who really needs emotional support more than they need a divorce attorney, or kind of blurring the lines? They want to talk to you. How are they feeling? So-and-so didn't call. They really, like you said, very emotionally vulnerable. But how do you draw the line to just the legal representation as opposed to bringing in the psychological needs that they may have?
Well, I think having a background in psychology and in education is important. But as an attorney, you have to know your boundaries. What's your brief? Because you cannot become your client's friend and you cannot become your client's therapist. What you can do, and I think what my profession, what my background has taught me to do, is to identify when there may be an issue and to recommend them to go and see a counselor. And there are some counselors I may recommend them to go to, or tell them to call up their healthcare provider and speak to a counselor. But it is very clear that when they speak to me and they call me, they're getting billed. And if they're not getting billed for legal services, then that is something that is a problem for me to do. I cannot bill a client for psychological services because I'm not a psychologist. But I can recommend them and say, it seems to me that you're having a very hard time with this, and everybody's having a hard time with divorces. You may need to speak to someone. And more than oftentimes they do, because they need that counselor to navigate them through the process.
That's excellent. That's excellent. So we hear a lot in the news regarding celebrities or even non-celebrities, this concept called prenuptial agreements. What is the biggest misconception about what is it, and what is the biggest misconception about prenuptials?
I think a prenuptial agreement is just an agreement, exactly what it says, an agreement between two people who are planning on getting married. And the biggest misconception with prenups is that two people can sit down and draft a prenup and sign them themselves. Prenups are taken very seriously in the law, because divorce law is statutory law. That means that the legislature of each state has come up with the laws to guide a divorce action. For example, in New York, that framework, that statutory framework, is called the domestic relations law. And it has everything in there that would guide a divorce and will guide what will happen in a divorce action. And when you do a prenup, you're taking yourself out that statutory framework and you're saying, I don't want the laws of the state of New York to decide what happens to my house. If in case we get married, for example, I want our agreement to do that. So if you're going to do that, then your agreement have to comply with the statutory law as how it should be drafted, how it should be witnessed, what language should go into it. So a prenup is something that one takes you out of the framework of statutory law applying to your particular case. And as a result, it has to be drafted properly. And you should have an attorney. Both people should have an attorney if you're going to enter into a prenup. Another thing, misconceptions with prenups is people think once we have a prenup, then everything is okay. If we get a divorce, just look at the prenup, but not so fast, because then the other person who did sign the prenup may have second thoughts and may go to an attorney. And in a divorce action, that attorney may try to poke holes in the prenup and get the prenup thrown out. So it's not a slam dunk that because you have a prenup, your divorce is going to be guided by the prenup. A court then have to look and see whether or not this prenup is valid and whether it follows the law of the state. So in essence, sometimes because divorce is so expensive, even if you have a prenup, you may have to settle and give your spouse something that the prenup does not allow.
So in what instances are prenups generally challenged? And on what basis?
Well, I think prenups are generally challenged when the parties have not thought things through or circumstances change. For example, let's say you have two professional couples in their young 20s and they're making the same amount of money and they enter into a prenup. And then 15 years later, one of them wants to get a divorce, but 15 years later, circumstances has changed. Maybe one has become a stay-at-home spouse and is taking care of the kids, left their jobs, are not making enough money, and they sign a prenup that says, upon a divorce, I don't get any spousal support. So when circumstances change, they may say, well, I want to challenge this prenup because, and the whole list of reasons on when to challenge the prenup, just to try to get something, because a lot of young people think that their circumstances today is going to be their same circumstances 15 years from now. But within 15 years or 20 years, you could have a death, you could have an illness, your child can become ill, you could have a child with special needs, you could lose your job. So when you're crafting the prenup, both parties have to understand that their situation at that time might not be the situation at a later time. And indeed, a court has to take a look at what the circumstances were when this prenup was drafted and what are the circumstances now. And is it fair to enforce all the terms? So I think that's the biggest issue of drafting a prenup. People don't think, well, I might get very ill and I'm giving away everything.
And by that time, let's say it's 10, 15 years, often couples have children. And if that's not baked into that as it relates to custody or, custody or something like that, that's where a prenup possibly could be challenged as well on those grounds?
Well, custody is different because the judge stands in parens patria in place of the parent when it comes to custody. So if you have custody issues in your prenup, those are usually treated as guidelines. You cannot say, 10 years from now, if we have children, X will be the sole parent of that children, or the children will live with X. So prenups are really about money, but some people do put information regarding custody and parenting time and religion upbringing in the prenup, but those are really just guidance. You cannot tell a court 10 years from now that we've already decided custody 10 years ago and judge, thank you very much, but we don't need you. That doesn't happen. Judge takes their role in custody decisions very, very serious and will not delegate it to a prenup.
Are state legislatures in general keeping up with the trends? For example, more stay-at-home dads?
I think that, I would say If not the state legislature, the judges are, and the divorce law is evolving. Now, back in the 1900s, with the divorce laws, a child automatically went to their father. Should they be a divorce, the children were considered the property, or for want of a better word, the parent who is best able to take care of these children are the father. And then back in the 50s or 60s, it switched to the mother. So people would assume that upon a divorce, the mother would get the children. But now it is pretty much what is the best interest of the children? Who is the parent that's better able to take care of these children? And then lately, most recently, courts are going towards a kind of like 50-50 assumption, even though that's not baked into the law as yet. It's going in that direction. Why should the mother take the child? Why should the father take the child? Or if it's same-sex spouses, why should one over the other have the child? It is the idea that children need to be with both parents, and both parents should have as equal access to the child as possible if it's in the best interest of the child for that to happen.
What are some of the common financial mistakes that estranged couples make when they're negotiating or in the process of divorcing or even separating? And there's another layered question under there that just came to mind. What's the difference between a legal separation and a divorce? What's the difference?
Well, remember that divorce law is state specific. So example, in New Jersey, we don't have legal separations. We call it a divorce from bed and board, which is very archaic term. In New York, you have a legal separation. So a legal separation in New York is that you have to go through all the mechanics of a divorce, but you don't get your divorce. You will get a legal separation. That means that you have to file in court for a legal separation, and a judge has to hear why you're getting a legal separation if you guys don't agree. And then you'll have a document called an agreement that says that you're legally separated. In New Jersey, the same thing has to happen, but it's called a divorce from a bed and board. So people can be separated, and people can be separated for years and not live together, but they're not legally separated unless they have a document that says they're legally separated from the court.
What is the reasoning behind pursuing a legal separation as opposed to divorcing?
Well, because some people do it because of religious reasons. There's some people who don't believe in divorce, but they want to separate their finances. Another reason that some people do it is because of health care, which is a big issue. In some cases, you could be legally separated and still remain on your spouse's health care. But those instances are becoming much more narrow because healthcare companies have realized, a lot of people are separating and we're still carrying their health insurance. So you have to be very careful with that. But I know 15, 20 years ago, people stayed together to be on the health care. Now people still stay together because they don't want to be divorced as a religious perspective or as an ethical, their own morals. They say, I married this person for better, for richer or poorer, and I really don't want to be divorced, but I can't live with them. So let's get a legal separation. So it's all kinds of reasons you need to be individual.
So how should people think about their divorcing, but in terms of addressing the immediate financial issues? Let's say, do they immediately separate their bank accounts? Do they immediately order or demand spousal support or alimony or child support? Before the divorce is solidified, what happens financially? What do you recommend should people do?
Well, all cases are different, and it's very, very case specific. So let's say two couples who get along together and they get along well, they're amicable, but they just realize they just can't live together anymore, and they want a divorce. And the best thing you can do, I would recommend, is that they speak to each other, come up with some sort of framework as to what they want how they want the division of the assets and any spousal or child support, if any, and maybe then go to their respective lawyers and we could work out an agreement. But then there's some people that as soon as the other person says, I'm thinking about divorce, they start hiding assets. So for you to protect yourself, you may have to go file for divorce. And when you file for divorce, filing the divorce, there's automatic orders in New York in place whereby that person just cannot take assets out of the marriage that's not in the usual course of their day-to-day life that would protect you. And then there's cases of abuse where you have to get out, where you have to file for order protection and for divorce. So depending on the circumstances of the case, it could be amicable, whereby you don't have to file for divorce immediately and you could work it out. It could be a little bit, adversarial, where you have to file for divorce and you need those automatic orders. And it might be really a question of safety, whereby if you file for divorce, this person may come after you and hurt you physically, and you need an order of protection. You need to be out of there, and you need help and protection.
I think about, and it's not often considered when we're talking about family and divorce law, but also should be framed around generational wealth. Because at the end, when that divorce is executed, when it is official, it could impact the long-term financial security, particularly that of children, depending on how it's negotiated. What are your thoughts on that?
I think so. I think it is sad, but in a lot of cases, when someone, let's say the case of adultery, divorcing for adulterous reasons, when someone meets another person and they want to go start their life with that person, sometimes they just want to be done, and they don't want to have any ties with the children of the first marriage or anything else. And that means all the plans and thoughts and dreams that those two people had for their children sometimes get put on the back burner because courts can only do so much. I think New Jersey is a little bit more advanced with New York in understanding that adult children need to be protected. And there's case law in New Jersey that would make a parent pay for grad school, undergrad and grad school.
Is that only New Jersey?
In New York, it's a little bit more nuanced, not as firm. The law is not as firm. It's not as firm as New York. New York is a little bit behind with understanding that, just because a child turns 21 doesn't mean that child is an adult, right? And so, but we're getting there. I think all states are getting there and understanding that we're not living in a society where people graduate high school at 18, get a job, and be self-supporting. But yes, it's really hard because usually you have a person who just want to be done and just want to walk away. And talking about generational wealth and setting up a trust for the family, or turning over the house to the kids, or keeping the house and selling the house and giving the kids a estate is very hard for you to get divorcing couples to do. So that is a great idea. I think people should think more about their children, but sometimes it's usually one spouse who says, I don't want to be bothered. I'm done. I raised this child until they're 18 and I'm done. They're not in college. I'm done. Or as soon as they graduate college, I'm done. And also you have to think about, sometimes there's conflict because it's nice and cute when a child is 9. But when a child is 19 and is not listening to you and not taking, not respecting you and being a horrible teenager, you might not want to be bothered with that child anymore. So it's very hard. It's very hard to talk about generational wealth when people are divorcing. It takes a really aware and reasonable and savvy couple to do that.
Now, there are different family units, as we all know. There's an archaic term called, or phrase called, common law partnerships. What rights does anyone have without prenups, without being married? I've been living with someone, to say I've been living with someone, I haven't, but I have been living with some for a decade, and we have children. Are there any legal financial rights between the two of us that a state or a law represents or recognizes, rather?
Well, not in New York and New Jersey. We've gotten rid of common law marriage. If you have children with someone, you could go to family court and get child support in New York and in New Jersey. If you have a domestic violence issue, you are treated with if you're living with someone in a romantic partnership, they're treated as family for those types of things. But you have no right to inheritance. You have no right to, unless there's a contract, you have no right to, spousal support. And you live with someone 20 years, 15 years, and they die, and the house is in their name only, and their children come, their adult children come, that's not your children, come say, we want our house, we put in this house up for sale, you're going to have to move out. So common law marriage is something that has been abolished in New York and New Jersey, and there's no marital rights from common law. But some other states may have it, but not here, not in New York or New Jersey.
Do you know the rationale why New York and New Jersey abolished common law status? Why do you think they did? The legislators.
I don't know, because it hurt people. It really does. I tell you, I have a case. Before I started my own practice, I taught at Legal Services, and I represent the Orthodox Jewish community in Brooklyn, and some of those marriages are just religious marriages and not state sanctioned marriage, or not legal marriage. And sometimes I've had cases where I had to tell the person, you're not married under the state of New York. You have no rights, but we could get your children child support. We could try and push hard to get you something, But so that's one thing. And I had a case in New Jersey a while back. I'm not sure that the year that New Jersey abolished common law, but it abolished common law during the 20-year period I've been a lawyer, and 24-year period I've been a lawyer. And I had to tell that person, the person died and the children came to get the house. And I had to tell that person, you have no rights under New Jersey because it's not in your name. New Jersey abolished that. If you 2 years later, before, you could have gotten something, but not now.
Attorney Barker, I don't think a lot of people know this. I don't think people know this, because why would you put yourself in that legal and financial vulnerable position that when life happens, you have zero rights? I understand some people are in the intellect, I don't want to be married, but marriage is a legal contract. But I don't think that they have thought it through to what if life happens and you have no access, no rights to demand from that other person.
I think it's more nuanced than that. I think that in romantic relationships, sometimes there's an imbalance of power, and you want to be with this person, and this person kind of gaslights you and say, do you want to be with me? Or do you want me for my things, for my house, for what I want? And it's very hard for you to push back and say, it's not a question of me wanting you for a house, but look what we're building, and I need some security. It's very hard for a lot of people to stand in their truth and say what they want. I need security. And it happens. There are a lot of people out there that know, they certainly know and would rather to be married, but the other person don't want to be, and they rather be in that relationship than to push back and have it in jeopardy.
But is it an equally balance from a power, without being demeaning, a power perspective? if you have zero rights if something happens, that you have no rights for protection, financial, alimony, you don't have any rights.
Right.
So how is that beneficial, just living with someone? And they can leave at any time without any duty to you.
Right. I don't think that they've thought it through, or if they did, they're willing to take the chances. Plus, a lot of people will say, I know him, I know her. They're not that type of person. That's never going to happen in a million years. We'll never get separated. We're in love. It will never happen. So I've heard that before.
They'll take care of me. That other person will take care of me. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Wow. All right. So let's talk about the person that is single and dating seriously someone. How can they enter or begin a conversation regarding a prenup? What kind of questions to inch into the water? Because sometimes people are offended to even, to be asked to sign a prenuptial agreement. How can we enter into that conversation gently with someone we're serious about?
I think the first thing they need to do, if they're consider seriously getting married to someone, before they set a date or anything, they should have a conversation with an attorney to figure out what their assets are and what exactly they want to protect. So some people would say, whatever we created together is ours, but my 401k, I work really hard for, and I don't want that ever to be touched. Or I have this house, it's my property, I bought it, but we're going to live together after the marriage in this house, and we're going to put money together in this house, but I want this to be forever my house. So you try to figure out why that person wants a prenup, right? Or some people say, I saw my parents went through a horrible divorce, and I just don't want to go through this, and I want to have some agreement to show that while we're doing well and we love each other, that would really dictate our divorce. So try to figure that out. And then they have to approach the other person in an honest and open way and say, I know we're getting married. I love you very much, but these are my concerns and I want to be protected. And I think that we could be protected by having a prenup. And you start that conversation out like that. But if you just say, we're getting married, I want a prenup, and the other person doesn't know why you want a prenup, then that might get really sticky. But if the other person knows, well, he wants a prenup because this is his pride and joy, he wants to always protect it, or he saw his parents get divorced and it was very horrible and he wants protection, or she amassed this amount of money and really feels strongly that it should always be hers. I think that you should have a why as to why you want a prenup, so that the other person who loves you can understand and not see it as, oh, you think I'm trying to get your money, right? And I think those conversations go a lot better.
So let's say the other person you are married to wants a divorce. Can they have what they want? Can you refuse to give them that divorce, refuse to sign those papers? And if so, what are the consequences of doing so?
Well, not anymore. The law has changed again. Divorce law changes a lot. So when I first started practicing law back in 2000 in New York and New Jersey, we had fault divorce. And if someone filed for divorce, the other person can say, I'm not giving you a divorce because you have to show the fault. You should have to show me why I should give you a divorce. And if you couldn't show the fault, then you don't get a divorce. So a lot of people want a divorce, you can't get a divorce. But now New York and New Jersey is now a no-fault state. That means that you can say, in New York, the marriage is broken, irretrievably broken, and we can't get along, and I want a divorce. And that's it. Once you say the marriage is irretrievably broken, you have the right to a divorce, and the other person can't stop it. In New York, in New Jersey, you can say we have irreconcilable differences. So you see the language is the same, and that person can get a divorce. But before, when I started practicing law, you have to prove fault. And if you didn't prove fault, you didn't get a divorce unless the other person agreed to it. But now you can get a divorce if you want a divorce. The other person can't stop you. And people don't understand that. People come to me, they don't understand. There's nothing you can do to stop your spouse from getting the divorce.
And who has to pay for the divorce? If I want the divorce from you, can I demand that my husband pays half of the legal expenses? Who actually has to pay financially for that divorce?
Well, we are guided by the American rule. And in American rule, each person pays their own legal fees. So typically you pay your own legal fees in a divorce action. However, you can ask the court to make your spouse pay some or all of your legal fees if your spouse is earning more money than you. So let's say you make $50,000 a year, they make $250,000 a year. You could ask the court to please have your spouse pay. And that has to be done by what we call a motion. So typically, each person pay for their own divorce, but if there's a money imbalance, one can pay for the other. Or if there are assets, you can ask the court, well, we have $100,000 in the bank. Could I please have $20,000 to pay my divorce lawyer? And can my spouse have $20,000 to do the same?
I'm aware of some people that are suing in the case of adultery, where they sue the person that was, the adulterer.
Yes.
Is that a valid? Because is that an old concept? Is that still happening today?
Yes, and it's ridiculous, I think. Hold on one second.
Sure.
It is absolutely ridiculous, I think, but in our state, but in the South, this is real thing. I talked to divorce lawyers in the South, and this is like a typical thing where you sue the paramour for interfering with the marital relationship. I say here in New York and New Jersey, we as divorce lawyers do not like filing on the grounds of adultery, and then we bring in the alleged person they committed adultery with into the divorce because it gets messy, and we have no fault. We have no fault for a reason. That means that this marriage is broken, committed adultery, whatever, is still broken. But some people want it, especially people who are religious, who don't want to be divorced just for irreconcilable differences because they believe that's a cop-out. They want the court to know and everybody to know I'm getting divorced because my spouse committed adultery, and those are the grounds.
And what are you suing that person for? I understand interfering in your marriage, but could you receive a financial reward if that was valid in your particular state from that person, that paramour?
Right. I haven't seen that in New York and New Jersey. We settle those cases. Frankly, I've never had adultery case go to trial. We settle on irreconcilable differences, or the marriage is irretrievably broken. You would have to ask a lawyer licensed in the states where that is popular to see if there's a financial settlement around that. But I do know in different states that is a real thing whereby you sue the paramour.
Mm-hmm. We're joined by excellent attorney Angela Barker, who practices in New York and New Jersey. So when you're going through the process of whether that's a prenup or negotiating legal separations or divorces or what have you, what other professionals often around that table that you are having conversations with? For example, a financial advisor, and then the HR department to find out where the assets are. Do you interact with another professional on behalf of your client?
Yes, and it depends on the case. So for example, if you are a stay-at-home spouse and you did not work for 10 years, but your other spouse believes, hey, she has a master's degree or he has a bachelor's degree, and I want them to go back to work, and I believe they can make, X amount of dollars a year, I may have to hire a vocational expert to figure out how much this person can make a year realistically. So vocational expert is one. Two, if there's an issue of custody and one person believes that the other person is a danger to their child and should not be exposed to their child, we may have to have a psychologist. The court may appoint a forensic psychologist to figure out what's going on. So sometimes a psychologist at the table, sometimes a social worker is at the table if there's issues whereby we say the child may be in danger from visits from one of the parents, and you may have to have supervised visitation. Sometimes, oftentimes you have an accountant because there's tax issues involved in, should I trade my IRA for the money in this brokerage account? How do we divide this money? Sometimes you also have to have a specialized CPA who would do an accounting of a business. Let's say you have a business and you want to value that business. We have to have someone appointed to value the business to see how much it is. We used to be able to value degrees in New York, but that's still happening. But not very often because of the law has changed. You have to have a real estate appraiser to figure out how much this real estate property is worth. If it's a marital home, if it's an investment property, if it's a commercial property. So anything you can think that happens in the field of human endeavor, we may have to hire. So divorce law is very broad. So you may have to hire an investigator to find money. If something is happening in another country, you may have to hire a lawyer in another country to help you investigate. So depending on the case, it could be so many people around the table having a discussion as to what should happen regarding custody, division of assets, spousal support. There's so many people depending on the case that you can hire.
This conversation and your expertise is so important because when we're talking about money, the work that I do in terms of financial education, the legal part of it, particularly as it relates to the legal part of our relationships, is often ignored until the house is on fire. And so I encourage everyone to research. I'll add information in the description in terms of where you can go for to seek out a lawyer referral service to identify and to interview possibly 2 or 3 to manage, to handle, to address, to consult with your specific needs and in your state, because each state, as Angela Barker Esquire said, each state has different laws. Do you agree?
I most definitely agree. Not only does each state have different laws, each divorce is unique. So I would say that, you can Google and find information, but that doesn't mean that information is correct. What you should do is go to your local bar association. So if you're living in New York County, you could Google legal bar associations in New York. And the New York, the Association of Bar City of New York will come up, or another bar association will come up, and you can go and call those people and speak to at least 3 different attorneys in your county to figure out what are the laws and also how would it apply to you. You said the word expertise, but here in New Jersey and New York, you cannot use the word. Even though I practice divorce law, I can't say I'm an expert in divorce law because that's just our rules of professional conduct, because we don't want to mislead the public, and we are so serious about our fiduciary duty to the public that we have to be very careful with what we say. So if you have an issue and it's New York, New Jersey, or any other state, find your local bar association and ask to speak to an attorney who practices divorce law. And they will point you in the right direction and you get all your answers heard. And remember, if you're divorcing, don't use the same email that your spouse has access to, to email these parties. Be very careful what you're doing and keep your privacy.
And stay off social media.
Oh, definitely. If you're divorcing, the worst place you need to do is be on social media. You just shouldn't, because you know your spouse is looking at social media and pulling off those posts, and those posts may have nothing to do with your spouse.
Right.
But why go there? Why give them ammunition?
Well, here at Planet Wakeza, where we are determined to create, sustain generational wealth, financial security, always remember that the intersection of law, relationships, our own financial behaviors are all joined together. We've been joined by attorney Angela Barker. Thank you so much for joining us here at Planet Wakeza.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.